And welcome back to Real Talk Sports with Rico. Today, I will be your host. Today's show, we are talking about the NFL. We're talking about the divisional round of the NFL playoffs. I'll actually be going through all four games here, prepping you here as we are just hours away from the action. And then we'll be talking a little bit here about the NBA. I know I've been promising you guys that I'm going to be talking about the NBA. I know I left you hanging Christmas Day, but we're going to talk a little bit here about the East and the West, just some of the hot teams, the storylines, and things that I think have kind of really dominated the NBA. Before we actually jump into it, let me first and foremost, I want to thank the audience out there for going ahead and liking and following the show. We definitely appreciate the comments, guys. Appreciate the follows. That helps us drive content to the actual show. Make sure you smash that subscribe button. Also, too, want to thank Anchor and Spotify for going ahead and having us have a home for the podcast there. You can catch the video and audio version there. You also can catch this on YouTube as well. If you're looking at this, this is under Real Talk Sports with Rico, as you see here in the back. And then if you want to get creative, I would suggest that you come to the podcast place where that is the creative destination for you. Go ahead and Google that, and you'll be able to get a studio just like this. And so let's go ahead, guys, and let's jump right into the content here. And let's start off with game one, and it is the Houston Texans versus the Baltimore Ravens. So going into this, guys, you guys know I was here with Devontae, the real Hogan, here last week, and I had picked the Texans. I thought that C.J. Stroud was phenomenal last week against the Cleveland Browns. This guy is for sure the rookie of the year. I thought that he was so impressive with the way he was able to just utilize his skill set in impromptu plays. What do I mean by that? If you look back in a couple of clips, especially when he was kind of dicing up the Cleveland Browns, you'll see he's throwing it off one leg. You'll see there's guys kind of hanging off of him a little bit. The timing wasn't necessarily there, but he was still able to find Nico Collins and others down the field. And that is something that you either have it or you don't. And so I know that the Panthers fan base right now are completely sick with what C.J. Stroud has been able to do. However, Houston is going to have a tall order here against the Baltimore Ravens. First and foremost, let me point out that it is going to be frigid out there in Baltimore. It is going to be about 25 degrees here, and I believe the winds are going to be up to possibly 15 miles per hour there. So don't quote me on that. Make sure you go check the weather, man. But it is going to be extremely difficult to pass the football, and that is what the Texans like to do first and foremost, is they like to pass the football. The running is kind of like a complementary to this thing. On top of the weather, you're going to have a tough Ravens defense. These linebackers and Patrick Queen and Roquan Smith are absolutely elite, and they're at the top level here defensively. So that is going to be something to watch for as well. And as I go through this, I actually have some statistics for you guys. So first and foremost, Baltimore, when they last played the Texans here, 25-9, they beat Stroud and company in week one in this one. It looks like the Houston Texans went for it on fourth down several times here, and they only converted one after going for it four times. So that's going to be huge here to think about. Also, too, with the fact that the Ravens have beat them once, you're looking at Lamar Jackson, who is basically, I think, the MVP here. And when I look at Lamar Jackson, I just think that this is his moment, right? Like last week, I think it was C.J. Stroud's moment to prove, hey, this is why I'm elite. This is why I'm going to be here for a long time. I think that this path is set up for the Ravens perfectly to go all the way. I really feel like this is their time and this is their moment. And it starts really today, and I think with Lamar Jackson, looking at his statistics here, the Ravens are coming in here 28.4 points per game, which is fourth best in the league. They're sixth in yards per game as well. And then as far as running the football, 156 yards per. The one thing to look at this with the running attack is they have just activated Dalvin Cook. This is going to be huge for the Ravens because now with Dalvin Cook up here, he's coming over from the Jets. He's only had 93 carries. He's going to be absolutely fresh. They've went ahead. They've cut Melvin Gordon as well. This is going to add to that potent rushing attack. And if it doesn't get any worse for the Texans, they're also getting Mark Andrews back. It's phenomenal that they have Zay Flowers, who is essentially record-setting for the Ravens in himself. But now you get Mark Andrews back, which has historically been Lamar Jackson's favorite target. paired with Isaiah Likely. Man, there is a lot of things to like about the Ravens, and this is going to be just absolutely tough for the Texans here. Um, I don't really have too much here to tell you guys to really pick for the Texans. The only thing that I would say is that this is going to take a really gutsy performance. And I will tell you that just based off what I've told you, the Texans cannot get themselves in situations where it's going to be a long third down situation. They can't get themselves in situations where they're going to have to go for it on fourth down. If they're going to win this game, they're literally going to have to grind out the Ravens. And I mean, they're going to have to dink it, they're going to have to dump it. I'm not sure those big plays are going to be there. Right now, initially, I feel like the Ravens are going to win this football game. I think that this is likely going to be a 34-28 situation. I think that the points are going to be there. It is going to take the Texans a little bit of time to kind of get it going, but ultimately speaking, I think that the Ravens are going to actually go ahead and dig this one out. So look for that, guys. I think it's going to be a great game either way. Two elite quarterbacks, and I'm looking for Lamar Jackson to take that step forward, be an MVP, and move forward and take the Ravens somewhere where they have not been in quite some time. I believe since 2012, maybe they were in the Super Bowl in San Francisco. All right, guys. And so the next game up here is going to be the Green Bay Packers and the San Francisco 49ers. And the question is there love in San Francisco? Because there was certainly love in Dallas. We talked about it last week, talking with Devontae, the real Hogan, and we both agreed that Green Bay is playing with house money. Once again, Green Bay is playing with house money. Whenever you have a team that is coming into your house and playing with house money, that's a very dangerous team because they don't have anything to lose. And Jordan Love is certainly one of the hottest quarterbacks in the NFL since week 11. And I believe last week for him, much like CJ Stroud, was a coming out party for him. And I think that Jordan Love not only had to get to the playoffs, but I think Jordan Love had to excel. And I think that he is now taken the Aaron Rodgers, kind of shadow off his back. He's taken the Brett Favre shadow off his back. And I think he has now proven that he is an elite quarterback in the NFL and that the Green Bay Packers got it right. And so I think, no matter what happens moving forward here, Green Bay is in a terrific situation for quite some time. Now, with that being said, they have a tall order. The San Francisco 49ers are absolutely no joke. First of all, they're coming off a rested week. You're looking at Christian McCaffrey here. He has 1,549 yards, which is first in the NFL. He's coming in with a 5.4 yards per carry and 14 touchdowns. This is not even talking about Christian McCaffrey and what he does as a receiver as well. He is going to be an absolute handful for the Green Bay Packers defense. And let me throw this out there for you, too, when we're talking about running backs. I have to give props to Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones, man. This guy is making it happen. 118 yards, 5.6 yards per carry, 3 touchdowns. But the one thing that I love about Aaron Jones is that, and I should have known this, he's from actual Texas. And every time he plays the Cowboys, he always has a great day, had a really huge day for them. And I think he's going to be a big factor for Green Bay if they're going to win this game because he's going to need to keep that defense at bay because I feel like if the 49ers are able to clip their ears back, they're able to get you with Bosa, they're able to get you with Chase Young, you're going to have Fred Warner back there. They have Charvarius Ward back there in the secondary. It is such an elite defense. The Green Bay Packers are going to have to play both sides of the football offensively. You're going to have to run it. You're going to have to pass it well. And that was what they had against Dallas. They hit a huge balance against Dallas. Dallas could not stop the leaks. Now, and talking about that, the one thing that the 49ers have that Dallas does not have is they're much bigger at the linebacker position. If you go back and you look at some of the tape, once you get past that front four of Dallas, the linebackers are a bit thinner. Green Bay was able to get up on top of those linebackers, and I'm talking about the linemen, and they were able to shift those linebackers either way that they went. And it got to the point that where Dallas had so many leaks out there, you even had linebackers kind of guessing wrongly on blitzes and things like that, which opened up elite holes and a lot of coverage in the secondary. I don't think that that is going to be the case here with the San Francisco 49ers. If it is one thing that they do and do well, it is play defense. The offense is what has been questionable, I think, in their losing games. And so the one thing that I will throw out here with Green Bay is that if they're going to win this, they also would need to turn San Francisco over. Every time San Francisco has turned the football over at least twice, they have lost those football games. The problem with Green Bay is that they don't do that well. They're tied for 23rd in the NFL with takeaways. And so that's an issue. They're middle of the pack against tight ends. George Kittle has over 1,000 yards, and he was the best tight end in the NFL. That's not good. They're middle of the pack against the run. I just told you about how good Christian McCaffrey is going to be. You look at Brock Purdy, he's one of the most efficient quarterbacks in the league. What does that mean? When you look at San Francisco, it's very methodical. They're going to eat you up with a 3 yards in a cloud of dust kind of deal. It's very much a West Coast offense, 3 steps, drop back, and there it is. And so Green Bay, I think, is going to get frustrated defensively. I think they're going to be on the field a little bit too long. I don't think that they're going to be able to hold San Francisco, who's going to come out hot. I don't think that they have an answer for Deebo Samuels. The cornerback play has been middle of the pack as well. They gave up 100 plus to CeeDee Lamb last week. They also gave up 100 plus to the tight ends last week. Don't think they have an answer for Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuels. I like San Francisco in this football game. I think that San Francisco wins this. I actually have this being a 34-24 game. I think that Green Bay is going to score points. I think that they are going to certainly go slug for slug with the Giant, but I just think that San Francisco just has a little bit more. They have a little bit more better football team. I think the "we've been here before" is going to kind of kick in on this game, and I think that that's ultimately going to get Green Bay. I'd expect them to probably it's going to be a play or two that's going to cost Green Bay in this one, and I like San Francisco and their vets to take them to home. All right, next up, guys, we have, I think, upset alert possibly with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Detroit Lions. Man, I wish I had my 8 Mile track, Lose Yourself, right now. One of my favorite movies. Shout out to Eminem, one of my favorite artists as well. Listen, let me start off with this with Detroit. Last week, they said it was so loud in that arena that it registered enough to be a 747 jet taking off. It is going to be extremely loud. It is going to be hyped. It is going to be a madhouse in Detroit. And the one thing that I love about Detroit is I feel like they grew up a little bit more last week against the Rams. I picked the Detroit Lions. You know, Devontae, the real Hogan, picked the Rams. He felt like the Rams were going to blow it up there. And that was a great point. I thought that it was possible. But the fact that Detroit has gotten so good defensively, right, with Hutchinson and all those guys, and Aaron Glenn is a guy that has been talked about as a head coach, you see exactly why. They have gotten so disciplined defensively. And I think that that is one of the things that is going to be their calling card in this particular football game. You're looking at Baker Mayfield coming in, who for sure is the comeback player of the year. 337 last week, 3 tutties, absolutely lit up the Eagles. What did I say about the Eagles? The Eagles' corners basically cover blades of grass. They exploited that matchup perfectly. And this, if you're thinking about this as far as upset alert, this can be a revenge game. The first time the Philadelphia Eagles beat the Bucs. First time, it was, I believe, a 20-9 game. Detroit beat the Buccaneers at home. Baker Mayfield and the Bucs want nothing more than to come in and get their revenge here. The issue with this is that although the Buccaneers have a good defense, they blitz a lot. Jared Goff is actually second amongst the blitz. And this is a weird stat. He's second amongst the blitz, but he's also top 2 as far as turning it over amongst the blitz. He has thrown 6 interceptions against the blitz. However, if you blitz him and you don't get him and you do not pick the ball off, he has thrown 13 touchdowns. This is going to be interesting, and this is a caveat, I think, for the Buccaneers, because they're going to lean heavily on the defense. They're going to try to keep Baker in for, the money. And obviously, they feel like Baker Mayfield can get the money for them late. I just think that I like Jared Goff. I like his experience. I like everything that he was able to do. In fact, he was able to light the Buccaneers defense up here for 300 plus in the first matchup. You're looking at St. Brown. St. Brown had over 100 in that one. He also had a touchdown. He's over 1,000. What is the one thing that the Detroit Lions have that the Eagles did not have? They have an identity. They have David Montgomery, who's rushed over 1,000. You have Jamar Gibbs, who's rushed for 945 yards. This is a team that very much has an identity. And the one thing that I love about this with Dan Campbell, he has built this to where it is a run first and then we pass second. When Jared Goff took the Rams to the Super Bowl, he had Todd Gurley. What was Todd Gurley able to do? Eat the entire NFL up on the ground. When you came up, he went over the top. This is the same situation with the Detroit Lions. I like the Detroit Lions against a feisty Buccaneer unit. I think that they take care of business in this one. I think that this is going to come down to the wire again. And if we're looking at this one, guys, I think it's going to almost model exactly what you saw last week with the Rams. I got this being a 23-21 contest in favor of the Detroit Lions. Shout out to Eminem. Detroit, lose yourself. All right, guys. And so now we move into the fourth and final game of the divisional round of the playoffs, and that's going to be the Chiefs and the Bills. This is the big brother versus little brother, okay? And so initially when we look at this game, it is going to be on the road. I do understand with Patrick Mahomes, this is his very, very first road game. But I don't give a damn. I'm still going with the Chiefs in this one. I like the Chiefs a lot, and here's why. Mahomes has been 2-0 against the Buffalo Bills, and he seems to have figured them out in the playoffs. The last time the Buffalo Bills played the Kansas City Chiefs, had it not been for Clardavius Toney with the offsides penalty, they actually beat them again in what was a dramatic finish, even though that was called a penalty. It got called back, the touchdown and everything like that, where Kelsey threw it back to Toney. I think that the Chiefs, I led with this stat or ended with this stat last time with the Chiefs. The last time the Chiefs were ranked offensively and defensively, they match up with the same team as Denver, I think back in 2015 or 2016. I've got to go back and check my notes. But the last time that this team had the same ranking as the Chiefs, they won the Super Bowl, and that was Peyton Manning's Denver Broncos. And so I know there's a lot to love about this, okay? So we're looking at Buffalo, and you're saying, well, wait a minute. They have a hot streak. They're at home. Let me throw the caveat to you. First of all, they do not have Davis, which is their second wide receiver here. Gabe Davis is going to be out. It is reported that he has a PCL, ACL strain, I believe, in the knee. He is out, O-U-T. Okay, so that is their second best wide receiver. On top of that, let me throw another caveat to you. Stephon Diggs, who is their playmaker amongst playmakers outside of Allen, he actually has been missing time in practice, didn't do next to anything. They're saying reportedly he had a foot injury last week. He actually had a re-aggravation this week, and he hasn't practiced that much. These are two things I do not like, okay, going into this. So this means now you're leaving me with Josh Allen, who has essentially been like Dr. Jekyll and Mrs. Hyde out there. You don't know which one is going to be which. I understand that he leads the NFL in touchdowns. I understand he basically looked like the Incredible Hulk last week against the Pittsburgh Steelers. But the Pittsburgh Steelers didn't have TJ Watt. They did lose defenders out there. And here's another caveat with the Bills. The Bills lost count them, 5 defensive players last week. I do not like the fact that they have lost 5. They're down to second-tier players on the defensive end going against the Kansas City Chiefs. And yes, I understand the Kansas City Chiefs have struggled, but they still have enough to put up 20 points in this one. I really like the Kansas City Chiefs in this one. I'm saying it's going to be a 20-17 game, even though the Bills are 8-2 at home, even though Josh Allen has had 44 TDs here, coming off 203 yards, 3 TDs last week. I would say the X factor, if the Buffalo Bills are going to win, is going to be James Cook. He's had over 1,000 yards rushing, 1,122 yards to be precise, 4.7 yards per carry, 2 touchdowns. In their first meeting, in which the Bills, I think, went in and stole one, he had 83 passing yards, 43 rushing yards, and he also, too, had a touchdown in this one. So, too much to like about the Chiefs here. I think the fact that they're only giving up 17.3 points per game, you're looking at an offense that is going to be a little bit anemic here. Um, even though Patrick Mahomes has been running for his life, he actually leads the NFL in first down scrambles. So even if you force him to run, there's no guarantee you're going to get him down to the ground. You put that on the fact that the Bills are losing defenders, not only in the secondary, but in the middle linebacker situation, which is going to be critical if you're going to stop Patrick Mahomes. I don't like this for the Bills. I think that anytime that a season starts, the season is ultimately going to end. I know it's been a fairy tale for the Bills, and I think that that fairy tale is going to end here on Sunday. I just think that the big brother comes in again. I feel like Patrick Mahomes adds to his historic career, gets his first road victory. And hey, they're looking at heading to Baltimore in the finals. And so, with that being said, guys, that is the NFL content. I know I've been promising NBA content here. So, we are going to do NBA content. And what we are going to do here is we're going to run just like the Indiana Pacers. We're going to run fast break offense here. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to put up some standings from time to time. And I'm just going to basically be talking about some of the teams, what are the top storylines, and essentially what has been going on here as we drive and get to that focus a little bit more with NBA content here. So, as we actually go ahead and throw up the schedule here, and I'm kind of looking at it with you guys, let's start off with the Eastern Conference, and let's start off here with the Boston Celtics. Obviously, they played last night against the Denver Nuggets. They had a 20-0 home winning streak, 12-9 on the road. I'm looking here, I'm looking to see what they were on their last couple 10 games here. But they've been a hot team for the most part. The Boston Celtics have been taking care of business. They're 6-4. And so the Boston Celtics are who we thought they were. We're looking at Jason Tatum. We're looking at Jaylen Brown. We're looking at Derek White. Those guys have evolved. I feel like the fact that they have gotten Drew Holiday has been essential for them. It's almost been a seamless fit for them. I was a little weary when they traded away Marcus Smart, who I think was really the catalyst for bringing Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown together, because it was reported that they were having some trouble and issues with, who was going to run the offense, defensive coverages, and things like that. And he was kind of like the leader amongst leaders there. But Drew Holiday has been phenomenal. He's been a guy that I think has been a real glue guy for them offensively, making sure that Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown are able to get the spots. And I think that Charles Barkley actually put this point out there with Kristaps Porzingis. Nobody has a better fourth scorer in the NBA than Kristaps Porzingis. He has been phenomenal. And really the question that I had with the Celtics was Porzingis going to be able to stay healthy? He has been not healthy in Dallas. He wasn't healthy in Washington. He wasn't healthy in New York. And I don't know if it's a situation where now that he's with Boston, and this has probably been the most that he really hasn't had to have so much pressure on him, that he's just been able to kind of take care of his body a little bit more. But this has been a seamless fit for them. Even though I'm a little questionable with the Boston Celtics and the depth off the bench, I'm still really like scary about that. They've given away Grant Williams. They've given away Robert Williams. These are guys that were glue guys off the bench, and that's where I get a little bit scary with the Celtics. Even though Peyton Pritchard, I feel like, is well deserving of his minutes. I think a guy that was well deserving of his contract. I think that essentially the Celtics, for me, if they're going to go to a place that they haven't been since Paul Pierce and Kevin Garnett are going to be there, they need to have a bench. Because remember when Kevin Garnett and those guys won, they had Glenn Baby Davis, they had Eddie House. It was such a wonderful bench, man. These guys basically came in and gave so much energy and firepower to that. They had Posey, just so many guys. And it's like, man, as a Bulls fan, I hated the Celtics. And I even watched them in that championship year when they won against against the Lakers there. I watched them actually go against the Orlando Magic. I got a chance to see them. I was like 4 rows back, and you just knew that that was a championship team. But the depth was one thing that actually stuck out or stood out for me. And so, with that being said, let's move on next here in the East. You got the Milwaukee Bucks. I did a short about the Milwaukee Bucks, and I know that they're second right now in the East. And the one thing that has really scared me about the Milwaukee Bucks is they don't have an identity. And it's defensively which really scares me about that. I thought that Jay Crowder was going to be a lot better off. I thought that they were going to get a little bit more better contribution from Middleton, and they haven't been able to do that. Brook Lopez, I think, has been phenomenal, and I think that Dame Lillard is now starting to catch his stride here. But much like Boston, I think that it is going to be the depth that is going to be the real issue for them. And I'm going to say this, and I'm going to talk about it with some of the trades that have been made in the East. I think that Milwaukee should look to probably trade. And one of the guys that I would say that they should maybe take a look at would be a guy like a PJ Tucker. And you're saying, well, PJ Tucker, he's not an offensive guru. That's not what they need. They have enough basketballs offensively. The problem with them is they couldn't stop air from scoring. They can't stop anybody. And, it's inexcusable right now. And I know that they see, or you see a lot of things that have been written about, Coach Griffin. You've seen spats happen on the sideline with Giannis as well. And I know that they're still kind of working those kinks out. But I think that a real defensive stopper is something that they're going to need there. They no longer have Grayson Allen anymore. They have Pat Covington coming off the bench still, but he's not necessarily the defensive stopper there. And I believe he also played with Dame Lillard with the Trailblazers, if I'm not mistaken. So that's a seamless fit too. But that's the one thing that sticks out to me with Milwaukee is I think that amongst the teams that have made deals, which are the next couple teams we're going to talk about, they're a team that has to make deals. Next up, you have the Philadelphia 76ers. The Philadelphia 76ers were a team that I think for sure needs to make a trade as well. I think that they needed to add pieces. I'm a little disappointed that they didn't go out and get Pascal Siakam at this point in juncture. And the one thing that I will say about this is that Joel Embiid, I wouldn't be upset if people want to give Joel Embiid the MVP again. I think that Joel Embiid certainly has played at an MVP level. He has had back-to-back games this week of 40 plus. And I love the fact that he took his matchup with the Joker so seriously that he went out there and got him 40, 13, and almost a triple-double. I love that about him. I've loved what Tyrese Maxey has done. The question mark for me with the Philadelphia 76ers is what happens with Tobias Harris and on. It's an expiring contract. Tobias Harris at times has really had to sit in the background offensively. And if you look at the teams that he's been on, whether it's been Detroit, whether it's been Milwaukee or the Clippers, he's been a focal point of those teams. And give him credit where credit is due. He has had to take that backseat role, and I think he's doing as best as he can. And, I think it's so much pressure that's going to fall on him. Joel Embiid, I think he has no more excuses this year. There's no more Ben Simmons where you've run him out of town. James Harden ran himself out of town. You no longer have Doc Rivers. You now have Nick Nurse, who has won a championship as well, like Doc Rivers. So at some point, when do the fingers start to point back at Joel Embiid? He's going to have to be huge if they're going to go somewhere where they haven't gone before. And I think that much like the Milwaukee Bucks, they're going to have to make a trade as well coming up with the trade deadline. And for them, I'm going to say that they need to make an offensive change. I'm going to say that they need to go out and get a guy like maybe like a Cam Thomas, somebody like that for the Brooklyn Nets who's kind of fallen out of the rotation. Perhaps D'Angelo Russell, a guy that's fallen in and out of the rotation for the Lakers. What is it going to take to get him over there? Because there's real talk that, maybe Gabe Davis comes back from his injury and maybe he's the guy that maybe gives them stability there in the West, or maybe a Gabe Davis. But they need to make a move, I think, moving forward to solidify this roster if they're going to go past Milwaukee and Boston. Next up, we're going to look here at the Cleveland Cavaliers, the New York Knicks, and the Miami Heat. So the Cleveland Cavaliers, there's really been nothing new with the Cleveland Cavaliers. Donovan Mitchell is who we thought he is. Jared Allen is who we think he is. And, the thing with them is I love how Max Strus has fit over there with Cleveland. Over their last couple games here, they're 16-9 in the conference. You're looking at this, they're 5-3 in the division, which is solid, and 15-8 at home. 9-7 on the road, it's decent. They've won their last six, so they've been surging here. I think that Donovan Mitchell, a lot like Joel Embiid, the question is, can he now do it in the playoffs? And another thing that I'll say about Donovan Mitchell is I've yet to see him excel at getting a lot of assists. I think that he's too good of a player to only have single digit assists. I feel like he should be a double double every single game that he steps on the court. He's absolutely too good. His handle is too good. He can get to places on the floor that other people can't. And Darius Garland is a terrific running mate for him as well. Cleveland, they're going to have to take the next jump. And I don't know if it's a trade for them, more so as it is a mentality. I think that ever since LeBron James has left, mentally, this team has got to get to that level of like, hey, we can win a championship and we don't need LeBron. I don't know if they still have that cloud that's been hanging over them for the last couple seasons, but I feel like Cleveland is good enough to where they should at least get out of the first round. What happened to them last year against New York should not happen this year. Next up, the Knicks. The Knicks 25-17. I know they're sitting fifth, but I like their position and I love what they've done to their roster. No, they didn't pull the trigger on the Pascal Siakam deal, but I love what they did in getting OG Anunoby over there and getting RJ Barrett out. Both players have both excelled. And the one thing that I love about this is that OG Anunoby reminds me a lot of what Coach Thibodeau had with the Bulls. What do I mean by that? OG Anunoby is able to play off the ball and he shoots the ball well from downtown. You don't need to run plays for him. He reminds me of one of my favorite Chicago Bulls during that run, Luol Deng. Perfect fit for Jalen Brunson and what he wants to do. Jalen Brunson, he likes to attack. He likes to get into the cup lane. You're looking at Julius Randle. He likes to do the same thing as well. They're both slashers, even though they will shoot the three, but their game is predicated off the slashing. And because they've gone ahead and gotten rid of RJ Barrett, it's actually opened it up for Quentin Grimes. It's actually opened it up for McBride. So they're a little bit more dangerous. And this is probably one of the better three-point shooting teams that I think Coach Thibodeau has had. The issue with Coach Thibodeau is they're very defensive minded. At times, the offense still bogs down. And I'm seeing the same things that I've seen with Minnesota and Chicago. They go on these droughts where they can't score. I'm still questionable right now with what they have at the center position. I think that they need to somehow get a center that could actually score. I'm thinking of something like a Zubox, even though this is never going to happen. The Clippers aren't going to get rid of him, but they need a player like that, like a Miles Plumlee, somebody like that. I don't think that Harkenstein is going to be enough for them. And also, too, I'm trying to think of their other center as well that's injured. He's coming off an injury. He's played for the University of Kentucky. He's in my mind. I can't think of it. I'm sure I'll get to it by the end of the show. But he was their starting center, but he's injured. But they need a guy that can actually go out there and get them some buckets, and I think that that's where the Knicks struggle. Next up, we're looking at the Miami Heat. The Miami Heat, they've been even kill, okay? Looking at their game last night against the Atlanta Hawks, they let Javonte Murray come in and Deshaun Murray come in and get his second game winner of the week this week in an epic format. The Miami Heat, they're going to be there. I think that injuries have been really a setback for them. Jimmy Butler has been out of the lineup a lot if you've been looking at this team. And the Miami Heat are within the top 5 in teams that have had the most starting lineups thus far. The one plus that I love about this is that they've had to play their young guys, mainly a guy that's from out here in California, and that's Jaime Jaquez Jr. And this is a guy that I've been talking about him since the Summer League, guys. Is a guy I've got extensive looks at him at UCLA, got a chance to look at him at the Drew League as well. Phenomenal player. I love a guy like that. He resembles a lot of what Jimmy Butler has. And right now you're seeing them in 6. He's currently out with a hip injury as well. He's been out for a couple games. They just got Tyler Hero back. When they get their core back, expect for Miami to go on a surge with Bam Adebayo and these guys like that. They're going to be right there. So right now they're 6 in the East. I expect for them to be right there in the thick of things as things go along, as we get ready to head into All-Star break and take off Miami Heat are going to be there. Now we're looking at the play-ins and then, kind of the end here of the East. We're not going to talk about the bottom half, but we're talking about the Pacers, Magics, Bulls, and the Atlanta Hawks. And now, starting with the Pacers, they've gotten Pascal Siakam here, and Pascal Siakam, I think, is certainly going to help them. He is in an expiring contract. The problem with the Pacers is they can't guard anybody. They're the top efficient offense in the league. They can score with the best of them. They're leading in fast breaks. They're currently on a slide, obviously, because Tyrese Halliburton has been out, but they can't stop anybody. And we're hoping that with Pascal Siakam, they're going to be able to get a little bit more tougher there from the wing situation, and get some type of resistance. I think that that's really been the issue for the Pacers. Aside from that, Rick Carlisle has gone on record and saying that he doesn't call a lot of plays for them, which is good, keeping them loose. I think that Miles Turner has played phenomenal for them. I love the fact that they have had good contributions from Benedict Mathurin. He's been phenomenal as well. So, Buddy Hield, a guy that you don't even talk about, who's an elite shooter that's come over from the Kings. I think he's really starting to find his stride. Like the Pacers remind me of the Kings last year, right? Remember when Mike Brown went over and like you knew that they were going to be like pretty good because it's like, man, you're getting a guy that's coming over from Golden State with that system and De'Aaron Fox and everything. Like you're seeing that maturity level, I think, for the Pacers. I think the next step for them now is to hang on and get back to where they were. They were at the top of the East. I see them being 4-5 towards the end. They're going through a tough spurt right now. I would say give them some time. I think the Pascal Siakam deal is going to start to work itself out. I know they gave up a ugly one against the Blazers. I was watching that one last night, and you can tell that Pascal Siakam just hasn't gotten comfortable yet. But much like the Clippers and James Harden, I said on this show, I was like, I think that this is not going to work out, and it does eventually work out. So Pacers fans, stay relaxed. It's going to be fine. Orlando Magic, I love them, one of the better young teams in the league. I think that they're still going through a growth spurt. Franz Wagner, you're looking at Ben Sherrill. I love him as well. Cole Anthony. I think Anthony Black is an up-and-coming point guard that has come out of the draft, another guy that I liked coming out of Arkansas that is going to remind you guys a lot of Magic Johnson. I'm saying that. Now you're going to see that coming to fruition as he starts to get more playing time. But the Magic is just a young team. They were one of the hottest teams to finish last season. And I think they're going to be right in the thick of things. Will they get into a play-in situation? I think it's very possible. It's not going to shock me if they are, but it's going to be an uphill battle. I think that there's still some pieces away. Lastly, I'll end on the East with the Chicago Bulls. My Chicago Bulls. Love them. Always going to be a Chicago Bulls fan through and through, true and true. The thing that is hanging over the Chicago Bulls like a black cloud is, are they going to trade Zach LaVine? I think that that is the question. Zach LaVine has been popped up in trades to the Los Angeles Lakers, which makes a lot of sense because he did play his ball out here in UCLA. Um, he's also been a candidate that could also go out to Philadelphia. Okay, now what are they going to do to get him? That's a possibility. I think it's a real fit that could go with Joel Embiid as well. But either way, he's also been looked at as going to the Sacramento Kings. They're thinking that that could be a piece that could move them there. Once again, he's in California. He's from out here. Well, not from out here. He's from the actual Seattle area, but he played college out here. So I think the Chicago Bulls have to make a move, okay, because they're not going anywhere as constructed. I think when you look at this, the Chicago Bulls have Nikola Vucic. They're trying to ride with that. And Vucic, at times, he's just not the same Orlando Magic center that he was before. So that's an issue. So the big situation is not there. Patrick Williams, a guy that they drafted, he hasn't really turned it on. At times, he looks like the guy. At times, he's comparable to Kawhi Leonard, they say. And I see it, but it's not an everyday consistency for him. The Chicago Bulls have really kind of put themselves in a bad situation with Lonzo Ball. And not saying that injuries don't happen. I mean, that's part of the game. But the game and the Chicago Bulls, the way they want to play is fast. They're not a team that's constructed to just kind of slow it down. And that's one of the issues, too, with the Chicago Bulls. So I hate to say it, but they're going to have to probably tear it down. I really like DeMar DeRozan. I've liked Levine. I think that they would be a lot better team if they had Lonzo Ball out there. Shout out to Kobe White. I have his rookie card, a guy that I thought he was going to be good, and he's starting to find it. His handle's gotten a lot tighter. He's starting to believe in himself, and I think he solidified himself as a building block piece for Chicago. But Chicago has to make a lot of moves because I think simply a play-in situation for Chicago is not going to be good enough. And with that being said, guys, let's shift our focus over to the West. Quickly, we're going to go through that. And so, with the West starting from the top, the Minnesota Timberwolves, a team that I think a lot of people are wondering, are they for real? I don't know, but I can tell you that they're certainly a ticket to get and a hell of a team to watch. Anthony Edwards is a man's man. I think that Anthony Edwards is essentially a guy that he is now taking that next step over into the league and ascending himself into a top five, top 10 player with Minnesota. I still think that the issue for them is going to be can this uh, Carl Anthony Towns and Gobert, can that really exist? You saw what happened when he was in Utah. He's got limitations, and I think that those same limitations will come up eventually for this team as they get into the West. OKC. With OKC, Shea Gillis-Alexander. Shea Gillis-Alexander right now is my MVP. If you haven't gotten a chance to watch Shea Gillis-Alexander, you absolutely need to go watch him play or buy a ticket to go watch him play. The way Shea Gillis-Alexander plays is phenomenal. I mean, he's a guy that doesn't play too fast. He can cut you up from the inside and get into his spots there on the floor. He can shoot the three. He's unselfish. You don't need to run plays for him. Shea Gillis-Alexander is awesome. And I think the Clippers, if they don't win and if they don't go anywhere, Clipper fans might be a little sick thinking about what it could have been. Because remember, they traded him and a lot of picks for Paul George. Paul George has been injured. We're going to talk about that. Next up, the Denver Nuggets. The Denver Nuggets are who we thought they were. Look at what they were able to do last night against the Boston Celtics. Now, I know they don't have the bench that they have anymore. I know that they've given up Bruce Brown. I know that they don't have Green anymore. But they have been equally as good with Watson and Brom and Reggie Jackson coming off the bench. And keep in mind, they're third in the West. Jamal Murray has missed games. The Joker has missed a game or so. And he's actually going through a little bit of a hip issue. He had a questionable tag going into that Philadelphia game. So, look, I think that right now the Denver Nuggets are just getting through the dog years of the NBA. They're getting it ready to get some revised energy now that the All-Star break is coming. I feel like Denver, it's their West to win or lose at this point in time. Which brings me to the Clippers, the organization that I once worked into at my early stint in sports, and I just think that the Clippers are the Dallas Cowboys of the NBA. The Clippers get us so hyped, they get us psyched, they go on these amazing winning streaks. You know, right now you're seeing they're 7-4 at home. They're 9-10 on the road, which is a little discouraging, but they're 8-2 over their last 10 games. And so they've taken off since James Harden has really found their stride. And I'm going to start there. James Harden, to me, has been a guy ever since he's won his MVP and every team that he's been on, he's disappeared in the playoffs. And I don't know if James Harden is going to be that same guy in the playoffs that the Clippers need. They are really going to need him to be elite. And I'm not talking about MVP level, but he's still got to score at a high clip and he's still got to find people at a high clip right now and make the game easier, right? And not just easier for Kawhi, not just easier for Paul George, but what he's doing for Mason Plumlee, what he's doing for Zubac, what he does for Terrence Mann, what he's doing for Norman Powell. You know, one thing that you'll talk about, or what NBA stars will talk about, whether it's Chuck, Shaq, Kenny, any of those guys like that, they knew that they could score. But if you're running with a point guard that can get you an easy 8 to 10 points a game without you actually having to work for it and you just had to be in the right place, that's what Harden is going to have to do right now in his career. And I'm not sure he's going to be able to do that. And if anybody could really bring this team together, it is going to be Tyronn Lue. And that is why they have had the surge that they've had. And shout out to Russell Westbrook. He's one of my favorite basketball players. His unselfishness and willingness to sit on the bench is why the Clippers were able to take off the way that they have. And I think that Russell is going to be a guy that they're going to lean on. The issue is, can Russell Westbrook at this stage in his career, he's going to have to elevate to a place much like his OKC days if James Harden has that fall off, which I'm really anticipating that that's going to happen. I could be wrong, but the Clippers have been they've been the Cowboys. They've been the heartbreak of the NBA. Next up, you have the Pelicans and the Mavericks. The Pelicans, the one story about them, they are now fifth right now in the West. It's Zion Williams. There was a play, or not a play, there was a game 2 weeks ago. He had over 30 points and 1 rebound. Way too talented, way too much size, way too much explosive ability to get 1 rebound in a game. The effort level, I'm not sure if it's there with Zion Williams. There's still a lot of question with the shape level. When you go back to the NBA tournament, I did a piece about that in-season tournament. He's walking down the floor, and it just looks like he's gotten the bag, but he hasn't taken it serious. And now I'm starting to think now, and he's missed out on a bunch of money too with an incentive where he had to play so many games, and he's missed games already. Now I'm thinking Dave Griffin and the Pelicans, they've got to really wonder, did we miss on this pick? And I think the blessing out of this is that they've gotten the great Energizer Bunny and Alvarado. They've gotten Trey Murphy III. They've gotten Jordan Hawkins out of Connecticut, who I think is the next Ray Allen. Put that down. Um, I just think that they might need to get ready to cut their ties and cut losses and go on with Ingram and CJ McCollum. I think that this is really what it's coming down to. And I've said this kind of off camera, but I'll say it really on camera. When you look at Zion Williams, to me, his projection with his explosive ability was Blake Griffin. What happened to Blake Griffin? Blake Griffin relied a lot on his athletic ability. What happened? As he relied on that and he couldn't shoot the ball, then you started to see a diminished role. I told you with that frame, you can't play like that. And he reminds me of Blake Griffin because when I worked there, Blake Griffin and him have the same similarity. Blake Griffin's really not that tall. Neither is Zion Williams. They're compact, they're explosive players. You can't play like that with that type of size and that type of punishment that you put on your body. And the fact that he hasn't developed and had the comfortable or hasn't gotten comfortable shooting the jumper at this stage in his career, very scary, very worrisome. And so I think that that's the one thing with the Pelicans that I will say they're good enough to be in the playoffs, but I think they're going to have to really make some major changes and address Zion Williams and this issue going into the offseason. Maybe they should start to look at it in a trade deadline. Next up, you have the Mavericks and then going into the Kings. The Mavericks have been playing phenomenal. They haven't been able to stop anything at the rim. They've gotten Derek Lively, who I said was going to be a phenomenal rookie out of Duke. He has been an excellent lob threat, reminds me of Jared Allen, fits in perfect with Kyrie Irving and Doncic. The problem with them is that they have lack of depth. When Doncic is out, when Kyrie Irving has been out, they've lost basketball games. Kudos to Tim Hardaway Jr. is playing phenomenal. One of the guys that I had in my fantasy basketball league, a guy that I would suggest that you pick up, shooting the basketball very well, coming from a great pedigree. Obviously, his father was a terrific NBA star, but he's the one guy that has been the most consistent there. I think Luka Doncic has been up there. He's certainly going to be in the MVP race. I don't like the fact that he's starting to miss games due to the little calves and things like that. If you look at the injuries, that's where he's been at. For most of his career, it's been those little soft tissue issues. So one of the things that I think Jason Kidd and company are going to have to address. I love the fact that they have Grant Williams over there. You're getting a championship experienced power forward center. That's kind of helped them out and kind of helped their depth a little bit. Maxi Kleber is starting to play a little bit more, so that helps out. And so I think that Dallas is right there. I think that certainly they're going to be in the playoffs. They might win a round or so, but I think that they're certainly a team that needs to make a trade as well. Next up, you have the Kings, Suns, Utah, and the Lakers. The Kings, they are who we thought they were for the most part. I think that De'Aaron Fox has played exceptionally well. 23-18. With this club, I think with them, it's still just the maturity level. And I still think that at some point they're going to have to find another piece to go along with Murray, with Barnes over there. And they're just about a veteran piece away. That's why I said a Zach LaVine trade would do wonders for them. A Pascal Siakam trade would have did wonders for them. Or whoever else is in the buyout market. They need a vet over there. There's even talk that Dejounte Murray, I think for Atlanta might be actually out there as well. So this is a guy that I think would fit in seamlessly for the Kings. The Phoenix Suns, I told you guys, they had to stay injury free. What have they not done? They've had injuries galore. Bradley Beal is a guy that essentially I'm starting to wonder, is his jersey a suit and tie? He's been over there so many times. He's literally been sitting on the bench a lot. When he's played, it's been okay. He's had his very much ups. He's been explosive at times, but Bradley Beal is not the same Bradley Beal as he was in year 3, 4 of Washington, which I told you was going to be scary there. They've heavily relied on Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant has missed some games, but not as many games. I'm banking on the fact that at some point, as this year goes along, you're leaning on Kevin Durant, a guy that has had 2 broken foot surgeries. He's had an Achilles injury, a major Achilles. Now, given at this point in time, he's come back and he's been incredible, but at some point, there's a lot of miles on the car here. I'm banking on the fact that I don't know if Kevin Durant, with this type of mileage, is going to be able to make it. And the real issue with Phoenix is they have a lack of depth. Like once you get past Booker, you get past Kevin Durant, you get past Bradley Beal, you don't know who's playing. You really don't. And you don't know who you're going to count on. And that's been the issue for Phoenix. I think that they're in a huge amount of trouble. They're top heavy. Frank Vogel is the perfect coach to coach stars, but I don't think Phoenix is going anywhere. They're going to look really fancy and shiny, and it's going to look great, guys. But I just don't see them really going realistically anywhere unless they add some major pieces here that go along with that. Lastly, Utah, the Lakers. Utah has really been a youth project. Deontay George, a guy that I'm going to throw out there that you should definitely take a look at, a young man out of Baylor. He's certainly a guy that I was high on with the Summer League. He's a guy that played well at Baylor. He's had some starting point guard minutes as well. He's shown that he belongs. I like the pieces that they have with Laurel Marketing, Jordan Clarkson out there. They have a lot of good pieces. Trenton Horton Tucker that used to play for the Lakers too. Danny Ainge has been a admirable GM. He's already built up the Celtics. He's on that path with Utah. They're just not quite there yet. Give them about another year or so. I think that they're going to be in the runnings also to make another deal. What that looks like, I'm not sure. There's real question that they could probably get rid of some guys in the backcourt. I know that they have the young bull over there who came over from Cleveland as well. So maybe perhaps they get rid of Colin Sexton. That's who I'm referring to with the young bull. So perhaps they get rid of him. I'm not sure, but they have some pieces. They have some picks that they can utilize here. And with Dwayne Wade, I think he's still in management over there. Utah's trending up. I don't quite know if they're ready for a play-in situation, but they're right there. Lastly, I'm going to say the most disappointing team of the West is going to be the Lakers. The Los Angeles Lakers are much too good a team to be in 10th right now. The one thing that has stood out for me with the Los Angeles Lakers is they have fluctuated in starting lineups. It is is he playing? Is he not playing? Yes, I'm with you. Yes, we're not with you. And I will give them that Austin Reeves was tired. He played over the summer. Most of those players that you looked at that played over the summer, they're tired, and they're starting to now get their legs back. You're starting to see that with Mikal Bridges. You're now starting to see that with Austin Reeves. But I think that the Gabe Vincent signing was just absolutely abysmal signing. It's starting to look a lot like Chris Dunn when he came over there, when they got him from Miami. It just hasn't worked out. He hasn't even seen the floor. And here's a guy that played major minutes for the Miami Heat in the finals, nowhere to be found. D'Angelo Russell was up and down in the playoffs, and it looks like that same kind of behavior has trickulated into this season, and you paid him the money. You could have let him go, but you elected to pay him versus Schroeder. That's another head scratcher. They got, Christian Woods over there. You got him for added depth. Why is it that he is sitting on the sideline? Why is he not seeing, major 5 minutes? I don't understand that. Vanderbilt, another guy you gave the money to. Vanderbilt has been inconsistent. He's not playing the way that he played before. There's too many inconsistencies, and I don't know if we had a fall in love syndrome here. I don't know if, how LeBron gets energized and he wants to win things. He obviously wants to make history. The Lakers made history. They won the first in-season tournament. But at some point, you got to realize that if you don't start winning games and if you don't place yourself in a winning situation, you're not going to make the play in. And even if you do make the play in, realistically, do you want to face a young OKC team? Do you want to face Denver or somebody like that in the first round? Absolutely not. I don't think that the Lakers are built for that. They're a team that is built for being there. And then it's like, now we can let our older players take over. That's where LeBron James is at this point. Anthony Davis certainly hasn't ascended to that consistent player, which is why we don't know what Anthony Davis is going to be aside from LeBron James. I mean, I've obviously said on the show several times, I think if LeBron James weren't on this team, I could see Anthony Davis being off this team within a year or so. I think that the teams would be written so hard, and I feel like fans would ride him so hard because of the inconsistency. I think he would have got traded out of town a long time ago. Remember, Anthony Davis and LeBron James have the same agent. And LeBron James, no matter how you look at it, he is the Lakers. I don't care about management and coaches and all that stuff. If LeBron James wants you there, you're there. All right. And I kind of think that that's the deal with Anthony Davis, even though he's playing a little bit better as of late. Still too many inconsistencies here. So, with that being said, guys, that is the show for today. I hope you guys certainly enjoy the NFL Divisional Round playoffs out there. I hope you guys enjoy the NBA content as we have gone over the schedule here, or actually the standing here, and kind of broken that down. I want to go ahead and first and foremost thank actually the podcast place where we're actually doing the show today, where it is your creative destination. Make sure you check them out if you want to come in and get a studio look just like this. I want to go ahead and thank Anchor and Spotify for being our platform there where you can check out the video and audio podcast. Make sure that you press like, subscribe, and smash that subscribe button if you want to check out content like this, Real Talk Sports. We're unapologetic and we're real here on this show. And then next, I just want to thank the people out there who have followed, actually help us drive stories and contents to this show, and any sponsorship or financial help that we've gotten for the show. I've always appreciated that, guys. So with that being said, this is Rico, Real Talk Sports. I hope you guys enjoy the weekend and take care. I'll see you guys on the next show. We're out.